Minister of International Trade and Industry, Yang Berhormat Gobind Singh, Minister of Communications and Media, Yang Berhormat Dato' Aminuddin Hamzah, Deputy Minister of Finance, Yang Berhormat Sifri Zin, Deputy Minister of Agriculture, Yang Berbahagia Dato' Ismail Bakar, Chief Secretary to the Government, Yang Berbahagia Dato' Ahmad Badri Muhammad Zahir, Secretary General of the Ministry of Finance, Yang Berbahagia Dato' Syamsyah Muhammad Yunus, Governor of Bank Negara Malaysia, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Ranjit Ajit Singh, Chairman of the Securities Commission, Yang Berbahagia Dato' Sri Nazir Razak, Chairman of CIMB Group Holdings Berhad, Yang Berbahagia Dato' Muhayyani Syamsuddin, Chairman of Maybank Berhad, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Aslan Zainul, Chairman of RHB Bank, all the distinguished dignitaries present, good morning and salam harapan to everyone. First, let me thank the three banks who have co-organized together with the Ministry of Finance, CIMB, Maybank and RHB for the successful organization of this conference. Now, when this government first took office after the historic 9th May general election, investors had questions about the direction of this country, even as ordinary Malaysians were celebrating the political change. Whilst our actions have answered some of these questions, some perhaps still linger. This conference is designed to provide greater clarity to domestic and international investors about our plans to push Malaysia forward and achieve the country's previously unfulfilled potential and promises. Malaysia had in the past been labelled as an economic tiger, crouching, ready to pounce anytime. Those were the heady days of the 80s and the early 90s, when we were amongst the darling of investors, both local and foreign. However, it appears as if we have fallen asleep, crouching, never really fully attaining anywhere near our full potential. It is a shame because in 1970, data from the World Bank shows South Korean GNI per capita was only 76% of Malaysia. But by 2017, South Koreans were 3 times richer than Malaysians. Even more worryingly, Malaysian growth rate has been slower than its regional rivals. The 2017 Malaysian GDP per capita in US dollar terms was only 4 times larger than in 1990. In contrast, during the same period, Vietnam grew about 16 times and China grew more than 26 times. Whilst Malaysia is no doubt richer than these two countries in per capita terms now, there's a real danger that these two countries could overtake Malaysia if we remain complacent. There's no question that Malaysia remains a country with immense potential, still largely untapped. It is the objective of the new Pakatan Harapan government to finally unleash this potential and allow Malaysians and allow new investors out there to uncover the hidden dividends. To this end, I will start off by touching on the global environment and challenges, and of course, the way forward. Now, Malaysia is a small, open and highly diversified economy. We are deeply integrated with the global economy and international financial markets. When discussing Malaysia's economic prospects, there is no running away from looking at global developments, both the good and the bad. Global expansion is expected to continue, with the IMF projecting world economy to grow at 3.9% in 2018 and in 2019 at 3.7%. However, emerging market economies, including Malaysia, are facing a challenging global economic and financial environment. The US economy is expanding strongly, but growth in other major economies, such as the Eurozone, Japan, and UK, has begun to soften. For the emerging markets, China, and emerging Asian economies continue to provide strong support to regional and global growth, while others that are mired in country-specific factors have seen their growth prospects being revised downwards. Against this backdrop of uneven global growth, downside risks have also intensified. Rising trade tensions between the US and its major trading partners are of significant concerns. Geopolitical risks have risen as international economic and diplomatic relations are being tested. These uncertainties have led to significant volatility in global financial markets amid continued monetary policy normalization in the US and tightening global financial conditions. As a result, the emerging markets have experienced large capital outflows and currency depreciation pressures. Some emerging markets have experienced worse than others, especially those that are viewed to have domestic vulnerabilities. The emerging markets are increasingly and perhaps unfairly being seen as a single asset class. Countries that exhibit similar vulnerability characteristics tend to be grouped together and therefore face similar or intensified capital outflow and currency depreciation pressures. While the spillovers have thus far been manageable, if there is anything we can learn from the Asian financial crisis, it is that contagion risks should not be taken lightly. Continued vigilance is warranted to guard against potential risks of contagion. Despite all these external headwinds, and not forgetting a change of government for the first time in 61 years, the Malaysian economy has proven to be incredibly resilient. Our strength can be seen from 6 factors. Firstly, the Malaysian economy is expected to remain on a steady growth path, driven by both domestic and external demand. While GDP growth is expected to moderate to around 5% for this year, Malaysia remains one of the fastest growing economies in the region. Secondly, we are a highly diversified economy. The services sector account for around 55% of GDP. Our exports are likewise diverse, with manufacturing exports accounting for more than 80% of our total exports. Thirdly, our favorable labour market conditions remain supportive of growth. This is evident from a low unemployment rate of 3.3% and firm private sector wage growth. The latter remains strong, registering a growth of 6.2% in the first half of 2018. Fourth, we continue to have a healthy current account surplus. Malaysia's current account surplus stood at 2.8% of GNI in the first half of 2018 and is expected to remain in surplus going forward. Even more positively, the goods surplus will continue to be supported by a highly competitive and diversified export sector. Fifth, Malaysia will continue to have in place a flexible exchange rate. The ringgit has evolved since the Asian financial crisis to become a fully flexible or a floating currency. Having this flexibility is advantageous to Malaysia as it allows the ringgit to play the role of a shock absorber during times of stress. Nevertheless, it is important for businesses to recognize that exchange rate adjustments are unavoidable and we are ready to manage their currency exposures prudently. In the medium term, as the government continues to improve our economic fundamentals, the ringgit will eventually reflect these positive developments. And the independent bank negara will of course help to ensure confidence of currency stability. Sixth, we have continued to possess sufficient external buffers. Our external reserve position of $103.9 billion is adequate to facilitate international transactions. Furthermore, international reserves account for only a quarter of Malaysia's total external assets. Banks and corporations hold 3/4 of Malaysia's external assets at the end of second quarter 2018, of 1.3 trillion ringgit, which can also be drawn upon to meet the external debt obligations of 740.9 billion ringgit without creating a claim on international reserves. Our financial institutions are also very well capitalized, with more than sufficient liquidity to support intermediation within the economy. Perhaps more presciently, both business and consumer sentiments have been incredibly positive, reflecting positive outlook on the prospects of the domestic economy. The Consumer Sentiments Index, produced by the Malaysian Institute of Economic Research, MIER, rose to 132.9 points in the second quarter of 2018, from 91 points in the first quarter. This is the highest level recorded by the index since the 1997 Asian financial crisis. MIER also reported that the Business Conditions Index rose to 116.3 points from 98.6 points on the same period, the highest for the past 13 quarters. More recently, the September Nikkei Malaysia Manufacturing Purchases Managers Index, PMI. These data signal the strongest improvement in Malaysian manufacturing conditions for 10 months, driven by a faster rate of job creation. HRS Market, which compiled this survey, said manufacturers added to their payrolls at a rate not since the opening month of the survey in July 2012. The reading remained above 50 in September, marking the first sequence of positive readings in 3.5 years. The trade conflict between China and the United States has also created a unique opportunity for Malaysia, where we are extremely well positioned to take advantage. In the recent months, anecdotal surveys have shown increased interest from Chinese manufacturers to diversify their production bases into Malaysia, as well as a means of gaining entry into both ASEAN and Western markets. At the same time, we see investors from OECD countries who had previously set up plants in China to shift part of their capacity here. We are not shy to highlight our multilingual strength in both English and Mandarin to navigate between the two largest economic giants in the world. This is on top Malaysia, geographically located at the heart of ASEAN, aided by Bahasa Melayu as our national language, being best placed to tap the fourth most populous region in the world. Indisputably, we have an established and diversified manufacturing and export ecosystem for both foreign and local investors to grow and tap. Our education levels, quality of hard and soft infrastructure, as well as the fluency in many languages, gives us the natural edge. At the same time, we remain significantly cheaper investment destination than many other countries. As the government gets down to business, we will prioritize on policies that will positively contribute to the growth outlook. The diversified nature of our economy also ensures that we will be able to weather any shocks that arise. The government is also focusing on improving the well-being of the people. It is important to ensure that dividends from growth are shared more evenly and the efforts to protect vulnerable groups continue. With all these factors in mind, there is no reason why one should not be optimistic about the prospects of the new Malaysia. You would have been aware of the 1 trillion ringgit debts and liabilities that was first revealed by our Prime Minister. These debts and liabilities are the result of the previous administration's escalating ingenuity in adopting off-balance sheet financing for government expenses and financing over the past decade. These hidden debts, if left unchecked, without a change of government during the May elections, would have brought ruin to the country. While the creative off-balance sheet debts were spending by the previous